And this is pertaining to them. Okay, so please understand that Jesus is the Messiah. It's speaking about him, and he shall be cut off. Now, what does it say? It says, after the 62 sevens, Messiah shall be cut off. In other words, the 62 sevens end, and then he is cut off. It doesn't happen at the same time, simultaneously, or anything like that, like preterists have to infer. It is not correct. The 62 sevens end, and then Messiah is cut off. We're going to get into that. We're going to explain it. Okay? So you have, he'd be cut off, but not for himself. In other words, this is an atoning sacrifice. Now, it doesn't specifically say that in the text, but we can infer it based on Jesus' ministry. In fact, the book of Hebrews talks, the whole book of Hebrews talks about the ministry of Jesus, and how his covenant supersedes the old covenant, and all that, and his work as our high priest, etc. John calls him the propitiation for our sins. He is the one that stores felicity with God. We have a right relationship with God because of Jesus Christ. Okay, he was cut off, but not for himself. Okay, and the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. We know that the sanctuary was destroyed by the Roman people in AD 70. Nobody disputes that. Not preterists, not dispensationalists, not amillennialists or pre-tribulationists or whatever. Everybody says that the Romans destroyed the temple. In fact, history says it. Flavius Josephus records it. The Wall of Titus records it. We know that it was the Romans. The question is, who is the prince and when did he come? The people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Did he come back in AD 70, or is he somebody that's coming in the future? That makes a huge difference on what your eschatology will be based on who you say this prince is. Okay? It says, the end of it shall be with a flood. By the way, I'm reading the New King James Version, just so you know. Where was I? The end of it shall be with a flood until the end of the war desolations are determined. Okay? Verse number 27, the most important verse in the Bible, and the pronoun I'm about to read is the most important pronoun in the Bible for understanding eschatology. Outside of Jesus Christ, when you're reading about eschatological matters, if you get this wrong, you will get your entire eschatology wrong. So pay attention to verse 27 and the pronoun in particular. Then he, that's the pronoun, then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. There is a 7-year period that is after the 62 period, and it's obviously, you have the 62-week period ends. After that, Christ is cut off, and so there's obviously a little gap in there. We don't know how much at this point, but it says after that, he will confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week, he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. Okay? The question is, you have two choices. Either he in that verse is Jesus Christ, and you'd be wrong, or it's the Antichrist. You got it right. If you said that he's Jesus Christ, you're wrong, and we're going to have to learn you up good now. Okay, so pay attention. If you said it's the Antichrist and you're not sure why, then I'll just help you out and learn you up good also. Anyway, it says here, then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. That 1 week is the book of Revelation. It talks about a 1260-day period. It talks about a 42-month period. Those are both 3.5-year periods, or it comes out to a 7-year period. Okay, that's the book of Revelation. All right. Now I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I want you to understand that if you say that it is Jesus, then you must be a preterist. Okay, that means you believe that everything in the Bible is fulfilled except the coming of Christ. All right, you're wrong. Okay, now there's something called hyperpreterism. Hyperpreterism is a heresy. If you're a hyperpreterist, you are a heretic. Why? Because of the Lord's Supper. What does it say about the Lord's Supper? We take the Lord's Supper proclaiming his death until he returns. If you're a Christian, or you think you're a Christian, and you're taking the Lord's Supper, and you're a hyperpreterist saying he's already returned in AD 70, then you're obviously not proclaiming the Lord's return until, the Lord's death until he returns. Okay? You are a heretic. So if you're a hyperpreterist, you need to learn up real good. Not just good, but real good. Okay? Anyway, here's what we have. We have the Bible is based on a 360-day year. It's not based on a 364-day year, a Julian date, a Gregorian date, or any other calendar that people use. You can't use the modern Hebrew calendar. You must use a 360-day year in your study of the Bible, or you will blow it. That's all there is to it. It will be wrong. Okay? So, we need to ensure that you understand that. From Genesis all the way to Revelation, a 360-day year is proclaimed. I'll prove it from the Old Testament in a minute, but the assignment of the Levites in 1 Chronicles proves it. King Solomon's assignment of his governors in 1 Kings, that'll prove it. The book of Revelation says it's a 1,260-day period, 3.5 years, and then 42-month period, 3.5 years. That proves it for the New Testament. There's no doubt about it. It is a 360-day prophetic year that the Bible proclaims. So please make sure that you understand that, and don't try to insert some other calendar and say, well, it's not working. Of course it's not working. You're getting bad information because you're using a bad calendar. Okay? The time that the 77s begins is with the decree of Nehemiah to restore and rebuild the wall. Okay? And a guy named Robert Anderson, let me see if I can find it here real quick. A guy named Sir Robert Anderson, back in the 1800s, was the one that did this calculation. It is the standard of all the calculations, and if you don't use his calculation, you will get it wrong. And I will prove it with my own calculation and one of another guy that's alive today, also named John Zachary. Okay? These calculations will prove that Sir Anderson, what he did in the 1800s was right. He was a very intelligent man. He went to the Royal Observatory in Greenwich. He got the star maps out. He went down to the minutes and the seconds for the sighting of the moon way back in 444 BC. Also, it's known as 445 BC, depending on the calendar you're using, but it's the same period, okay? It comes to, on the 1st of Nisan, BC 445. Okay, whenever you use a Bible passage and it mentions the 1st of the month, or it doesn't mention any day in the month, then you must use the 1st of the month for your calculation. Okay. Fortunately on this, we know that it is 14 March of 445 BC. That is the starting of this calculation based on his work, his just wonderful work that he did back in the 1800s. Okay. You go from that date. Let me get out another chart so I can read this to you properly, and I will show you the chart that I did. This is my chart, and I'll show it to you here in a second. And anyway, here we go. It starts on 14 March of 445 BC. That's recorded in Daniel 9:25, okay? And you have 173,880 days, or 483 years it takes you to 6 April of AD 32. That's Sir Robert Anderson's calculation based on a 360-day prophetic year. Okay? 6 April AD 32 is the day that Jesus Christ rode into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey, and they hailed him as their Messiah. It's recorded in the Bible. You can read it there yourself. Okay? So there it is. People will try to fit in AD 30 or AD 33 as this year. That is not the year that Jesus was crucified. It was AD 32. There is no doubt about it. I will prove it in a second with these other calculations, but don't get off on some tangent and say, well, it was AD 30, it says 40 years later the temple was destroyed or whatever. Don't get upset about that. It is AD 32, okay? From 14 March of 445 BC until 6 April of AD 32, it is 173,880 days, or exactly 483 years, just as this angel said to Daniel. Exactly, to the day.